Welcome to this week's weekly report. It's Monday the 11th of January. So last week saw the US stock market smash through all-time high. It's spurred on by the Georgia elections, basically giving the Democrats in the US control of the Senate. Belief is now that stimulus will be forthcoming and lots of more money pumped into the system to support the economy. So stock markets certainly like that. That's basically what we call risk on. Risk on when money flows into higher risk assets. So stocks smashing through all-time highs. But interestingly enough, the US dollar also ended the week on a positive term, having seen a massive sell-off over the last 2 years or so. So this is basically the DXY. DXY is the index of which the US dollar is the main component. The second main component of the index is the euro, accounts for about 60% of indeed the index. So basically the US dollar pretty much all of last year was on a decline. Now we've come in to some really important support levels coming back to basically April 2018. And last week we put in this candle here. That is what's known as a bullish engulfing candle. When you see that type of candle at big levels of support, it can often lead to a change in direction, and that's basically what we're seeing at the moment. The US dollar now seems to be reversing its position and looking maybe that it's found that support. So looking at the momentum meter now, this is a chart that we use to determine the strength of one particular currency against the other currencies. Now there are 8 different currencies. There's the key down there, you'll see it. Basically all these different coloured lines represent the different currencies. You see the green line here, that's the greenback, that's the US dollar, and you see down here that is the euro. So at the moment the strongest currency in the basket as of today, it basically is the US dollar. So there's money flowing into the US dollar and money flowing out of the Japanese yen. Interestingly enough, we're seeing money flowing back into the Australian dollar, the commodity currencies, as well as you would expect in risk on. Normally risk on, money moves into the stocks, money moves into the commodity currencies as well. Like I say, the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar as well. Also seeing some strength in the Canadian dollar. So we always use this chart to determine the strength and weakness of currencies and like to play the theme of that as well. So moving on to our picks for the week. As I said, the US dollar is looking pretty strong at the moment. The most actively traded currency pair on the planet happens to be the euro against the US dollar. US dollar in fact counts for about 80% of all transactions. The euro counts for about 30% of all transactions. So typically when the dollar gets strong, the euro gets weak. You saw that there on the momentum meter. So we're looking at continuation of selling the euro, and we're buying the New Zealand dollar at the moment. Going back to the momentum meter, New Zealand dollar looking like a nice, solid, strong currency to buy on the back of a weaker euro. And see, this is basically where we're looking, and we're looking at this trend continuing now. You'll see here on the 4-hour chart, basically bullish momentum coming into this level of resistance. We're thinking now that the trend will continue on the way back down. Also, on the theme of selling the euro, buying the US dollar, we've also got a trade potential shaping up here at the moment. You'll see here on the 4-hour chart, we're coming through this level of support. We've broken through, basically rolling off that 2.5-year high that we saw in the dollar. So we're looking at continuation of selling the euro against the US dollar. Okay, so data releases this week. Not so much out this week. We obviously had non-farm payroll out last week. Non-farm payroll basically is the employment number in the US. That was a big miss. Markets were going for about up to 60,000, but they actually came in at down 140,000, showing that the US economy is really still continuing to shed jobs. So that was a big, keenly awaited data release. That's gone. Now this week, not so much coming out this week. We've got some central bank speakers. We've got Lagarde speaking. Actually, she's speaking later today. Then we've got the Fed Chair Powell speaking later on in the week. But the major event is the US retail sales at the end of the week. Typically what happens when you have the non-farm payroll the following week, this week tends to have a bit of a light calendar. Talking of calendars, let's have a quick look at the economic calendar. Okay, so here's the economic calendar. You can access this from the Forex Signals website, absolutely free. Basically tells you the data releases that are due out this week, and it shows you the impact expected as well. Let's go out for 7 days. The impact, basically, we're looking at anything really with red, shows you the high impact, but also keep an eye on what else is going on as well. This week, following on from non-farm payroll, not a lot going on. The biggest impact we've got really is later on in the week when you've got a core CPI coming out of the US, that's Consumer Price Index. Markets look for that. Basically, it's a clue of inflation. Going up 0.2 is the estimate, and of course when the actual release comes out, markets tend to react. As I say, quite a light week in terms of economic news coming out. We've got something coming out there in Japan. Eurozone, not a lot. ECB policy statement comes out on Thursday. A bit of jobless claims on Thursday as well. But the biggest release really this week will be back down there on Friday when we have the US retail sales numbers. As I say, not a lot going out. Retail sales, they're going for down 0.1. Retail sales, of course, are important. The more money people are spending on the high street, the more likely it is to have an effect of inflation. And of course, inflation starts edging up, interest rates tend to follow as well. So we do look at retail sales as a key economic release throughout the week. As I say, a bit of a light week in terms of economic releases. I'll normally go through these on the Monday, discussing any of the key events that we should be expecting the week ahead. So make sure you tune in for that. Okay, so there you go. Not very much going on the economic front this week. May see an impeachment of President Trump, but I don't think that's going to have too much of an impact on the markets. All eyes, of course, will be on the stock market. Stock markets at the moment are controlling what's going on in the bigger markets. At the moment, it is definitely a case of risk on. Okay, so we're streaming live around the clock 7 times a day. Do come and join us over at ForexSignals.com. You can interact with us live. We'll be looking for trading opportunities and discussing market events as well. We do this every Monday, so make sure you subscribe now, and I'll see you next week.